Welcome back to the show, y'all. For today's guest, we have Andrew, aka Ace Pacheco. Andrew is the VIP nightlife professional, the OG in Vegas, a serial entrepreneur and investor, and just an awesome dad. Seems like a really cool dude, man. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Of course, brother. So it's been awesome just kind of chopping it up before the show, dude. Tell us a little bit about your transition. So obviously started in nightlife out here in Vegas, which I'm excited to get into. I'm not born here, but raised here. So I like to hear your perspective kind of from the inside. But tell us a little bit about your story, man.
You know, I'm just a quintessential Vegas story. You know, came out here with very high hopes of making a city where I didn't know anybody. And my background was always in the restaurant world, where I was a fine dining server in Boston, a sommelier. Came out here with these grandiose dreams where I'm going to make it and be a sommelier at like places like Prime and STK and SW, and eventually move back to Boston and work at Encore Boston Harbor. That's right when Steven Cohen was getting the casino license back in the day. This was like 2013, 2014 now. Came out here, learned very quickly. It's all who you know. You know, fell flat on my face and grinded for a long time. Got my foot in the door at the Wynn. Started working at restaurants like Botero, Jardin, Andrea's at the time. That's what eventually got me in front of all the guys at Encore Beach Club. Became a nightlife host there, you know, and just really worked my ass off. And the rest is history. From there, met some amazing people. Obviously, the Wynn is the who's who of the casino business. Got in front of very, very, you know, influential people that took a chance on me, and I was able to leverage all those opportunities and get that into business, focus on my family, and you know, here I am now speaking with you.
I love it, dude. How do you stay focused? You know, we kind of mentioned my fiance works in the industry. She started at Tao. The last couple of years she's been at EBC. So from the outside looking in, I've kind of seen the ins and outs of the industry, and it's really easy to get lost in the sauce in Vegas, especially when you're getting comped every single weekend. You have access to some of the highest players in the world that are coming here. How do you stay focused and not allow the party scene and the nightlife scene to distract you from ultimately achieving what you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And I have been guilty of that, of getting caught up in the scene, you know, and losing focus and making some decisions that are based on ego. And it's a very, very hard industry. And the only thing that I could credit myself for being where I'm at right now is having a solid team of people around me, good friends, good family, that when I did get off that path, that they were able to check me. You need people like that going to hold you accountable, you know? And I was a little older when I came out here to Vegas as well. I think I was already almost 30. But this overall nightlife industry is not conducive for young men to become, you know, responsible, influential, productive members of society. I know that's a big statement for me to say, because I owe everything I have to this city. I owe everything I have to nightlife. But it's definitely changed in the past 5 years or so, where there's not like real leaders of men that are still involved in this industry that can really take up these young guys and kind of build them up and coach them up. But it's hard. I mean, you're a nightlife host, you're meeting all these celebrities, you're meeting all these wealthy people that are spending 20, 30, 40 grand a night in the nightclub. How does a young man not get caught up? A young, like 22, 23, 24-year-old kid, how do they not get caught up in that? Where all of a sudden you're making easy money, you're going to these crazy restaurants, comp dinners, and you know, when you're a successful nightlife host in the city, you are respected. That carries a lot of clout in this city. So you just got to stay focused. You know, I think you got to check the ego at the door, and, you know, no one's perfect. You're going to make mistakes and learn from them, but never let those mistakes define you.
No, I love it, dude. It's so interesting because in Vegas, you know, we just got done talking a little bit about Miami versus Vegas, where it feels like Miami is more of like how much money you have, what kind of car you drive, where Vegas is 100% who do you know? You know, access and status a lot of times has to do with who you are and who do you know. And it's so interesting because me just being outside looking in, it's like someone could maybe be doing okay financially, but because of their position, maybe they're a VIP host, maybe they have certain clients, the network capital is way greater than maybe their salary or the commissions that they're making. What was your transition like from really starting as a VIP host? For those that don't know what that is, it's a promoter, right? For the most part, you're looking for clients to connect to, clubs to obviously bring in business, and then you start building your book of business and your client list. But what was that transition like starting as a new VIP host in Vegas, trying to figure it out, to then obviously becoming one of the greats in the industry?
So I was fortunate in the sense where my rise was very quickly. I went from all of a sudden being a new, like, when you're a VIP host, there's junior host, senior host, and then like directors of customer development. But at the end of the day, we're all the same. You get paid on people coming to the club and buying bottles. I rose really quickly. And that was two things: luck, being at the right time, right place, and also hard work. After I rose to the top really quickly and, accomplished all the goals I ever wanted to do, sell $5-6 million a year, make X amount a year, get the car, the watch, all the cool stuff that comes with being a host in the city, being respected, being known as one of the top guys in the city, I got bored quickly, and I was always thinking 2 steps ahead and I always knew that there was a ceiling on being a nightlife host. I always knew that. And the analogy I always use is that being a nightlife host is like an NFL running back. You have 3-5 years, that's it. So you better get the endorsement deal. You better find a way to be a commentator up in the booth, or figure it out, because that's it. You're going to phase out, and no one wants to be the 40-year-old VIP host still posting flyers, still going to comp dinners, and all the other BS that comes with it. So I was always looking ahead, and when you're at the Win, you're meeting the who's who. And again, throughout my entire life, not just in nightlife, but everything, it's always been luck. It's always been on the right side of things. And I just met that one person. I met the one person that was a billionaire, was a big high profile guest of the Win, and he changed my life. And everything I have, I owe to him. Everything.
That's cool, dude. What is the context? So you're meeting these affluent people as someone who is the connector. You're someone that could obviously help them achieve what they're looking for out of the Vegas lifestyle and what they're trying to accomplish. Maybe they're in town with some buddies or whatever the case is, where you're connecting them with dinners and bottle service and comps and girls and putting them in the right clubs with the right DJs and all the things. But in one degree, that is a party context. Where is the bridge between actually taking that party context and turning it into a personal and business relationship?
I think that's a skill that you can be taught. I think that's a skill. There's a reason why you're here, where you are in life, and many other people that we know. And I think it's you either have it or you don't. It's charisma. It's, be able to have a conversation, adapt in different conversations, in different contexts of conversations. Because anybody can talk about, oh, we got chain smokers tonight, and we're gonna come in, and we're gonna do the flyers, we're gonna do the bottle prezzo and all the other stuff. But can you carry a conversation regarding business, about his trip to Napa, what's going on in the stock market, whatever it may be? And I think you have to recognize certain situations with a who's who when you walk into certain rooms where tastemakers and influential people are. And I think if you have that ability to create that rapport, the sky's the limit. It really, really is. Your network is your net worth, and you either have it or you don't. And I'm fortunate enough where I have that.
Did you always have that skill of identifying kind of different scenes? Because I agree with you. VIP host isn't considered a sales position, but in reality is it's sales, right? Sales is just transfer of energy and emotion, right? You're obviously trying to build rapport. Did you always have that skill set to be identify, okay, this is someone who I need to maybe invest time into, invest into the relationship? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there just spinning their wheels because they're not identifying the right people that they need to build rapport with, create that relationship with, add that level of service to. Where did that come from?
I think I always had it. I think I was just a skill that I always had. In another life, I wasn't the best kid growing up. I was a troublemaker growing up and involved in some things I'm not proud to talk about. But even then, I knew who I had to align myself with, and who I had to be with, and it's just something I've always had.
How much do you feel like, Ace, your drive comes from your childhood?
All of it. My entire drive comes from my childhood. It comes from my upbringing, with seeing my father struggle, seeing what he had to go through to take care of our family, and obviously chase his dreams. I've always had a chip on my shoulder ever since I was a kid, and that's really where it comes from. And I think it's growing up like that, even till this day, it's probably not the best trait to have, because I think sometimes it can be a flaw, because you're always insecure. You're always thinking someone's doubting you, right? But that's just how I am. I always want to prove someone wrong, and that's how I motivate myself in life and in business and everything, where I think, all right, well, that person doesn't want to see me succeed, so I'm going to prove them wrong. But it comes from my childhood 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had 90 so guests on, and I'd say about 80% of them, there was a level of struggle. Maybe it was financially, maybe it was self-esteem, maybe it was something from their childhood, where as they grew up, Tony Robbins talks about either you're running towards pleasure or away from pain. So a lot of people, they're running away from the pain of whatever they correlated money to, or a self-worth thing. For me, I was super shy and timid growing up. My parents never made more than 30 grand. So as soon as I was a somewhat adult, 18, 19 years old, my brain went to, okay, I don't want to work for someone else. I want an unlimited amount of potential on the amount of money I can earn. And I really just want control over my own destiny, because I saw what working 40 hours a week, 40 years of your life worked for, to end with nothing. So it's always interesting to see. It's pretty easy to see people's future based on their past.
And it's one of those things where it's me at 40 years old now, I'm sitting across from you, and I can kind of look back and realize, great, thank you. I never partied. I worked in nightclubs, but I didn't party. Looking back all these years, it really just comes from, a young boy trying to seek the approval of his father. That's what it is. I saw the relationships that I had with other kids had with their fathers and different things like that. And that's where that fire comes from. It's all about that. And I think that's why I have such a good relationship with my kids now, with my two boys. That's what it comes from.
What do you think separated you from the other dozens of people that maybe started before you, started after you? Maybe they were from Vegas, so they had more connections. Maybe they had a little bit of a head start, but maybe they ended up fizzling out, or they never actually turned that vehicle that they had access to your point, right? That contract they had for 3 to 5 years, never actually turned it into something more.
Hard work beats talent every single time. And I just wanted it more. And I wasn't going to let anybody stop me. And that's how I am till this day. I'm not going to let anybody stop me. It's just hard work beats talent.
Relentless, dude.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just wanted it more than all these guys. And these guys, they didn't see the bigger picture. They really just saw that it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If Vegas nightlife success is just getting the guy to spend 30 grand in the nightclub, and you get that quick Instagram moment and you post it and you get the shout out on Tuesday when you get to the office where Andrew had X customers spend such and such. There's a lot more to this game than that. And that's not the tip of the iceberg. That is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to this game than that. And that's how I always viewed it.
Yeah. What networking skills? Because to be a VIP host, in my profession, it's door to door. We train people on how to knock on a door, prospect, get them to break preoccupation, get them interested, and eventually make a sale. Where with you in your industry, your past industry, it's all about networking. It's all about shoulder to shoulder, shaking hands, making phone calls. What networking skills do you feel like you've learned from that have served you way past just the VIP host industry?
I don't want to give myself too much credit, as I know I did mention luck has a lot to do with it. If I didn't work at the Win, I wouldn't be here. I mean, that really was a launching point for everything. If I worked at Tao Group or another nightclub, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Luck did, play a lot into it. Me being there during the right transition where, Alex Cordova had just come in to take over Win Nightlife at the time. He got Chainsmokers. He was opening Delilah, Art of the Wild, all these things that were going on. And that was the launching point for everything for me. With that being said, it's, someone who I used to be close with a long time ago would always use the analogy, leave no stone unturned. You cannot leave no stone unturned. There's so much more to this business than just waiting for a casino host to call you because they have a big player in town, waiting for a concierge to call you because someone walked up to the concierge desk. I was trying to get a hold of all of these customers before they even got to Vegas. Through social media, through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through literally cold calling people. I mean, whatever it may be. I remember at one point I had emailed like the top 50 family offices in the country and reached out to director of operations for those family offices. Like, who does that as a nightlife host? These were things that I did, That's what separated me from everyone else.
Above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you get the opportunity to get them here, you better own that experience and make sure it's perfect, from the moment they get there to the moment they leave. There's a lot more to this business than just booking a table in a nightclub. Yeah.
So what does that look like? Because based on what I can tell from you, you're very service-based. I take that same approach in my industry, service leadership. We work for them, right? It doesn't matter how big you get. You're always working for your employees to some degree because it's your job to serve them and help them. And it's the same thing with your relationship with clients, right? Your job is to provide that extraordinary experience so they don't call the other 20 people they can call and they call you. What did that look like? Because I think a lot of people can take away, whether they're in the nightlife industry or in solar sales or whatever they do, all about over-delivering, under-promise and over-delivering for their customers. So talk to me about that service-based mentality.
You definitely got to come up with a plan for each and every customer. I think you're Googling that person, you're knowing all the little things about them, the nuances of that person, what makes them who they are. It could be, it's a lot more than just having a birthday cake in the nightclub when they come out for a bottle of Prezzo. I remember one time when I had checked into the Beverly Hills Hotel on a trip with a customer. I had just arrived, and they had a little macaron set up with my son's faces on it when I walked into the hotel room, because somebody looked on my Instagram, saw that I just recently had a baby, and they put that up there. Imagine that welcome coming into that hotel. Till this day, I stay at Beverly Hills Hotel. I don't go anywhere else when I go to Beverly Hills. It's little things like that. Coming up with a plan when they come here, make them feel special, thinking of every single problem that's going to happen before they even arrive, finding a way to say yes to every single thing, even though you're going to say no, and maybe direct that conversation. It's it's the little things. It could be, for example, someone's coming in and they're celebrating a bachelorette party, right? Their daughter's 21st birthday, and it's her and all of her girlfriends. They're coming in to see a big DJ. This is a huge moment for them. Are you going to be the type of host that just goes through the motions, checks in the table, does the bottle prezzo and leaves? Or are you going to actually walk that nightclub before it even opens? You're going to look at the seating chart for that night. I want to know who's seated next to them, who's sitting behind them. I want to see all the problems that may come up. Are we going to go ahead and have this 21st birthday party at this dance floor and have, the Asian drug dealers from San Francisco that are coming in right next to them, right? Like, we got to come up with all these little things before it even happens. And that's what it is, going over every single step of the night.
No, it's so good, dude. It's so good. Ace, I think you've been in a unique position that not many people can be in, because you're in a context with these extremely affluent people that's outside of their professional space. Like, for example, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over my career to be in the right rooms, whether they're a mastermind or hire mentorship or do the things that in my sales world and context that you're supposed to do in order to get in front of these people. But you're in a unique position where you're out there creating the relationship, but people are coming to Vegas because they want that experience, and it's outside their traditional contextual environment. So what do you feel like, almost to the degree of them being outside of kind of like their work mode, that you feel like some of these affluent people have in common, if you were able to pull any like common traits or characteristics or tendencies from?
I think they want to be treated like they're regular people, and they see through people's bullshit too. Treat them like they're a regular person. Be honest, be genuine, and be yourself. Don't be overly, nice and trying to, kiss up to them in any way. I couldn't think of another word to say that. I didn't want to say kiss, but treat them like they're regular people and be genuine, and just provide. They want to be treated like everybody else, but also want to have the best experience. So,
yeah.
And I tell a lot of these guys that work in nightlife till this day that the opportunity you have to get in front of these people like that and hang out with them in that setting, to your point, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on masterminds and getting these rooms. You're literally getting a front row seat with a Silicon Valley billionaire or CEO of this company, a huge real estate mogul, whatever it is. Make the most of it. There's so much more to this. And again, just booking their nightlife table.
Yeah, it's funny. I tease my fiance. I'm like, you met a billionaire before me, through the nightlife or through your girlfriend who is, hosting this billionaire. And then he's like, okay, you can go on my PJ to Napa with all your friends. And it's like, it's so interesting because there's so many different ways to success or networking, and success means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What would you say, dude? So just me being around it, again, as an outsider, I'd never worked in the industry or anything like that, but being around it and seeing someone come in town and spend 80, 90, 6 figures in a night on bottle service in front of Tiesto, in front of chain smokers, it shifts your perception a little bit about money. Do you feel like you were positively or negatively impacted by being around that type of environment in terms of your paradigm when it comes to money?
Negatively. Absolutely. And that's another thing that it's another factor of why this is a tough environment for, not only just young hosts, but waitresses as well, where you get, scorned, so to speak, by seeing the amount of money that people spend and how easily it just comes and goes. So it's hard to maintain a positive outlook when you see that kind of money just flowing like it's literally nothing, and spending, 30, 40, 50,000 a nightclub. So I would say negatively, especially now that I'm a customer and I can go to the club and I've seen it. So,
yeah, no, it's interesting. I even catch, my Nicole, some of her perspective. It's like, oh, I just saw them spend 80 grand, or, they took on a PJ. It's like, that's not real life in a lot of cases. And especially if it's, you're in a relationship with someone, or you have a friendship with someone outside of that Vegas, Miami, Dubai, nightlife, day club bubble. It could be a little bit jarring when you get into the real world and realize that, the average person doesn't have 6 figures to spend on a weekend or something like that.
There are many people in this country that follow all of us on social media and see what the lifestyle and see the life that we have here in Las Vegas, and very envious of it, because this isn't real. And that's what brought me here from Boston. I remember being friends with certain people on Facebook and Instagram back in the day, and watching this lifestyle and seeing how cool it was. And I couldn't wait to get out here.
Yeah. What do you think's special about Vegas? So I'm from here. I've only really traveled as an adult for 2 years to California, and I couldn't wait to get back. But it's always interesting to hear people's perspective that hasn't been here their whole life, come here. Obviously, you have a more intimate relationship with the city because you've worked in the trenches per se. But what do you think makes Vegas so special?
The easy answer is the action, it's the entertainment, it's the 24/7 access to the best restaurants, best shows, all that stuff. I think Vegas is the way I look at it now, Vegas is so special to me because this is literally like being in Boston, New York, Chicago 30 years ago. The way that the city is growing. And we've become so much more than just a gambling city, so much more than just an entertainment city. Now we're becoming a sports city. I mean, there's so much opportunity in what goes on here. And that's what's most special to me now.
No state tax is pretty cool, too.
Yeah, that's also a great thing.
Yeah.
And we can play poker here. I like to play poker a lot. So playing
poker player?
Fun. Yeah, I play a lot of poker.
Oh, it's good, dude. You look like a poker player.
Thank you.
When it comes to, I want to hear about your transition away from nightlife to the entrepreneur world. I love what you said. You viewed it as a vehicle. A lot of people, I feel like they look at their current situation and they look at it as the end all be all, when in reality, especially when you get access to that amount of networking, that amount of proximity to people, you really should use that as a vehicle to then take that and go on and do bigger and better things like you have. Talk to me about the transition away from nightlife, stepping away. I know that you started at the Wynn, you worked at Resorts World and a little bit at Zook and a couple other places. How did that transition look like, going completely away and into the world of entrepreneurship with, I believe, lending and the luxury item game?
So as I do more and more of these podcasts, I want to use the opportunity to become more and more authentic and just be more real about things, right? My story was I was forced to figure it out. There was an opportunity that didn't necessarily play out the way it was supposed to. And I was at after I left Resorts World, I went to Wynn for a little bit. I was at Wynn for 10 years. I worked at Zook Group for a little bit, for like a year, which again, that was just the biggest mistake I ever made in my career, and we all know why. That's not what it was supposed to be by any means. That's a shame what goes on with Zook Group and Resorts World. That's bad for the city. So from there was another opportunity where I kind of had a second chance to kind of reclaim that success that I achieved at the Wynn. And I'm not going to get into it in this podcast, but that opportunity was taken away from me. And being a young man with 2 children, one who is severely autistic, who needs a lot of help with different therapies and things like that, I was in a bad place. And I was at a real bad crossroads where what's next? I went from being the nightlife guy, being this respected person in the city, to now your stock's not what it was a couple of years ago, where now many doors are shut on me, where before it was the complete opposite. My name would open up doors. And that was the lowest point of my life as a man, as a father, as all of it. And I had to really have some tough conversations, look at myself in the mirror, hold myself accountable for decisions that I made that got me to that point, and figure it the fuck out. And that's what I did. I figured it out. I found a way. And I bet on myself, and I did what I had to do to make sure that my family was set, that my boys were taken care of forever, that Ace's autism would never define him. And I've never looked back. That was about 3 years ago now, and I'll never look back. And then in 3 years, I've accomplished and done more and had more success in 3 years of where I'm at now than I did in 10 years in nightlife. And I'll never be remembered as just a nightlife host. Now I'm remembered as, businessman, father, philanthropist, whatever it may be. And I'm not stopping.
It's powerful, dude. I feel like most people's biggest adversity sometimes turns into their biggest opportunity.
Absolutely.
So many stories. The concept of overnight success is so funny, which is it's been debunked by so many different people. But you look at someone and you look at all the wins, especially in the 21st century in 2025. You have social media, you have Instagram, you have that highlight reel of success, and it's so easy to look at this guy in Miami and hate on his Lambo, or look at their watch and be like, good for them, you know, yada yada yada. They had it easy, you know. Ace grew up at the Wynn, he knows everyone, all the things. But behind that is usually a story of self-doubt, adversity, massive challenge, massive heartaches, you know, the dark nights of the soul. But that is really what forges you and gives you the perspective in order to really take advantage of the next opportunity.
And that's my story. I was the darkest place in my life, not knowing what is next, how I'm going to get there. And I just use that as my motivation. And here I am.
How much does faith impact those decisions in your life?
Very much so. I was born and raised Catholic. Wake up every single morning and pray to God every single day. I'm very, very thankful and grateful for where I'm at in life. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God. Because, you know, even when I was young, when I was a drug dealer and all my friends went to jail, and, you know, I was living in Massachusetts and with the opioid epidemic, and I got out of that drug game right before the Percocet and heroin and opioid epidemic started. That was God looking out for me. You know, it was God looking out for me when I first moved to Vegas, and I shouldn't have made it here as a waiter, as a sommelier, whatever it was. He looked out for me then, you know, and he was looking out for me 3 years ago when I was in a real tough place. And I was always believed that it was going to work out. I prayed every single day, and I knew if I did things the right way, it would work out.
How much of what's your risk tolerance? When you look at decisions, obviously when the transition to entrepreneurship was more of a forced transition, but since that point you've had your hands in multiple different businesses. I know you're in the luxury goods game, which I'm excited to get into watches because I'm a watch guy too. The lending game, a lot of different things. But how do you view risk or calculate it?
I think everything is always about leverage. It's always about insurance. And you have to make sure that you're not over your head or overextended in any way. And you have to have that discipline. I'm always going to be, you know, shooting from the hip. I'm always going to be very, very aggressive in things. But there has to be that voice of reason where you have to, you know, outweigh the good, the bad, and make a calculated decision in anything you do.
And do you have mentorship when you go to that?
Many mentors, you know, and I have a lot of good people around me that have been with me through thick and thin. You know, one of my dear friends, Marcio San, he's a host of Tao Group. He's the #1 host in Tao Group. I've known him since day one. He's actually the biggest host in the city, probably ever at this point. You know, he's my mentor. He's my voice of reason. You know, he's my best friend that I call when I want to do this or I want to do that, and he usually talks me off the ledge or builds me up. So he's definitely someone very close to me that I rely on for things like that.
Yeah, how important is it to have that tribe and to have that accountability and that brotherhood with someone? Because I think as men, sometimes we get looked down upon to ask for help or be vulnerable. It's more of kind of that old paradigm of just suck it up, make it happen, figure it out, right? You should be here to provide and protect. But I think as time goes on, it's really important for men to have those type of support groups and that type of brotherhood, and especially in business when usually things are harder than they are easier for a period of time. You need those different people to poke holes with and have that perspective. How important has that been for you?
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's always been the stigma. You can't admit you're weak. You can't ask for help. And I'm lucky in the sense where I have a real big group of friends that have been with me since day one. And it's a two-way street. They can call on me when they're jammed up, they need help with something, whatever it is, and I can open up and I can be vulnerable and be like, hey, this is where I'm at. I need you guys. And I think that's extremely important because you can't go about this alone. In life and business and fatherhood, nightlife, whatever it is, you got to have good people around you, you know, and you also have to recognize as we grow up that you really are who you surround yourself with, and you got to choose those circles very, very carefully.
How do you know who's in your life for a reason or for a season? Because I imagine over the last 10 years of nightlife, you have acquired a lot of acquaintances, a lot of peers, a lot of friends maybe at the time that turned into not being friends. And to your point, law of association is so powerful because if you hang around the wrong people or you take advice from the wrong person, it could be detrimental to your life, your career, your relationship. So how do you identify, back to identifying who the who's are in a room, how do you identify who the people that should really be in your life and those that just aren't trying to leech certain things from you?
my climb up to be successful happened so quick and so rapid. And there were a lot of people that I thought were there for me that did have my best interest at heart. And you realize, when you have moments of adversity and things don't go as smooth, those people aren't that. The same group of friends I have now, I've had since day one. And I think it's very important to know that when times of success happens, you don't deserve it, because all this respect that you're getting from people, it's all because of what you can do for them, right? It's how they benefit from knowing you. You have to recognize that. And there's two sides of that, right? Because when it hits the fan and things aren't going smooth, all that criticism you receive, you don't deserve either, because they don't know you. They didn't know you when you were successful, and they used it to their advantage. And the criticism, they didn't know you when things hit a rough patch, and the criticism isn't deserved, because that's just helping them with their own insecurities. I'm very proud to say that the same group of friends I have now is when I had when I first started a Surrender nightclub as a junior host, when I was running their tables.
Surrender Wednesdays.
Yeah, running their tables for guys like Trevor, Sammy, Roman Massaro, Natalia, Marcio, all of them, Randy, and my good friend Gino, all of them. I have a very, very close circle. I have a very big network. When it comes down to it, my circle is very, very small.
It's important, man. Ace, what do you think your superpower is? I like asking people that question, because I think we all have certain talents and gifts. Sure, we want to always be good at everything, but some people are naturally better at certain things than other. Superpower, what would you say?
I think that my superpower is my ability to not conform to other people's opinions of what you can and can't do. It's almost a sense of being naive, right? You're not supposed to be a waiter or come to Vegas as a waiter and not know anybody and become a nightlife host and become one of the most successful nightlife hosts in the city, lose it all, and then somehow transition and change everything and become a successful entrepreneur. Like, you're not supposed to do that. That's not what people do. And I approach that with everything in life. When, people are always quick to say, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, this is what you should be doing. And I just don't believe in those putting myself in a box or those parameters people try putting you in. You have to be naive. You have to find a way to believe in yourself when no one else does. And that's my superpower.
It's important, dude. Most people project their own insecurities and limiting beliefs on other people. So. Mm-hmm. Which goes back to, who do you listen to? Are you listening to your colleague who doesn't believe that he'll ever get out of the industry because of X, Y, and Z, and allowing him to influence your decisions and what you think is possible? Or are you listening to that billionaire mentor that has the results that you want? When it comes to not allowing people to infiltrate your mind, is there anything that you do in order to protect that? Is it reading books? Is it consuming information? Is it just keeping your circle tight? Because I think whether we consciously or unconsciously know, we are being influenced every single day, no matter what, through the information that we read, to the people we're around, to what we're consuming on the news. And based on what's coming in, usually determines what's going out, right? Output equals input. So what are some things you do to really protect that superpower, to make sure that you don't allow other people's perspective on what you think you can do to limit you consciously or unconsciously of what the action you actually take?
I think privacy is key. Privacy is key. And you got to make sure that people don't know what your next move is. They don't know how much you have. They don't know what you're doing with it. And you got to keep your next move a secret until you actually do it, because people are going to try to get in the way of it. It's just their natural inclination. It's been like that for thousands of years. It's not going to change. It's human instinct, right? And there's a lot of people that don't always want what's best for you. They don't have the best interest for you. So privacy.
Yeah, it's interesting, because a big lesson that I've learned over the last couple of years, I always used to be the guy that gets really excited about something and then tells them, right?
Yeah,
almost kind of like, you get excited, like, oh, this is happening, or this is happening, or this is happening. But a lot of times I've learned it's like, one, it does no good. Logically, it does no good, because either those people are excited for you, and if it doesn't happen, they're going to be not excited for you, or secretly, they actually don't want you to win. It kind of goes back to the quote. It's like, everyone wants you to do good, just not better than them. Yep. So being more private, especially in a era where everyone is so public about their information and their wins and what's going on, I think is really sound advice.
I learned that lesson the hard way. My time at the Win. When you're a nightlife host, everyone's goal and dream is to. There was someone that worked in nightlife. He's no longer there, but he's a good friend of mine named Dave Evans. he was the GOAT of all nightlife. He's the one that met that one big customer that changed his life and opened up all the doors, right? And when you're in nightlife, we were all following Dave Evans. We all wanted to do what he had and do what he achieved and have what he had. And when I got something close to that, you're quick to tell all your friends, like, I just met so-and-so. He just did this. He just spent such and such in the club. He just gave me the opportunity to get in this. You want to share that because you're so happy. You're genuinely excited. And, that kind of created a perception a little bit with certain people at the Win at that time where people weren't happy that, this nightlife host and now all of a sudden driving a nicer car than they are to work and living in a nicer house and going to this dinner and having this bottle of wine and doing this. And, people can be a little scorned when it comes to stuff like that. And it doesn't always necessarily lead to good situations.
Yeah, sound advice. So you forcefully transition out of the VIP host, out of the nightlife industry into entrepreneurship. I believe your first business was the jewelry game. Is that right?
Yeah, around COVID is when that kind of took off. And that's not something I'm really too much involved with. I do have some good friends and partners, the guys at Lux Vegas, XL Jewelers. Michael who runs that over there as well. I've always been, an aficionado of watches and like wanted nice things. And of course, when you work in nightlife, the first thing you look at when you meet somebody is the kind of watch they have. And us as men, you always recognize what they're wearing. It's the same thing with purses for the girls, right? Yeah. So I was involved in that a little bit, flipping watches. And that's when the market was really hot during COVID. Yeah. But what I really got involved with, my first endeavor was a personal loan business called Private Access Cash. That's what I first started doing. That kind of got my foot in the door as an entrepreneur. From there, I'm in everything right now. Real estate investing. We have a small portfolio of single-family homes we rent out. I'm in the medical lien business, the hard money lending business, the real estate flippers. Currently working with a real estate flipper. When it comes to business, I have my hands in every single thing.
How do you stay disciplined though to make sure that you're focused on the 20% that's creating 80% of the results? Because what I see with a lot of people, especially in my industry, it's like they're doing solar on the side, then they're doing life insurance, they're doing drop shipping, they're investing in real estate, they're doing this, they're doing that. They're trying to catch all these different rabbits, which ultimately leads to not catching any versus on focusing on one thing and getting really good at, like you did over a decade, and then monetizing that and then focusing on other things. Is there any advice, tips, or tricks that you would give when you have your hands in so many different verticals to make sure you're not just being active, but being productive?
I'd probably be the wrong person to give advice to that because I love the chaos. I thrive in the chaos. I need to be behind every single day. I need to not be able to go to sleep at night worried about everything I have to do the next day. And I need to be so bombarded by everything I have going on every single day. That's when I'm happiest. That's when I'm at peace. So I want to be overwhelmed. I want to have so many different things going on. I want to be late to the next meeting. I want to be late to the next Zoom call because I'm in this. I'm probably the wrong person to give advice to when it comes to something like that. But I make it work, and that's what works for me.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg has a quote. He says, "Move fast, break things." That reminds me of what you just said. I think every person's a little bit different. I'm kind of the opposite. I value peace. I value foundation. I value making sure that I have control over my environment to some degree. Obviously, we all need a certain degree of uncertainty, but I think it goes down to really knowing yourself. If you thrive in that environment, which makes sense why you did so well in nightlife, because there is so many uncontrollables, it's new every single day, then that's something that you really need to dive into. But I think it comes down to obviously knowing your strengths, which is why I asked about the superpower, because I think it's interesting to know.
I'm envious of that. I wish I could be like you. It would make my life much easier, but unfortunately, I'm not.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the watch game, dude. What would you say in the luxury goods game? I think in Vegas, it's very easy to get consumed in that. And it's not a bad thing. I look at materialistic things as trophies. If you earn it, go ahead and do it. There's not many things that guys can spend money on other than like a nice car, a nice house, a nice watch, so on and so forth. Do you think watches are good investments, or do you think it's more of a materialistic flex that most people are doing?
I think if done the right way, if you're really creating, if you have relationships with the right sources, such as authorized dealers and things like that, and you're building a true watch collection over a period of time, yeah, I think it is a great investment. But I mean, if you really are a true watch collector, you're not buying these watches to sell one day. You know, you're not buying these watches as an investment. You're buying these watches because you appreciate the brand, the history, and everything that goes behind it. So in that point, it's probably not a good investment. But I think there are people that are trying to buy watches and flip them and things like that. But you need people like Lux Vegas, you need people like XL Jewelers, because not everybody can walk into a Rolex or a Patek store and walk out of there with their dream watch. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Just like the same way nobody can walk into a Ferrari dealership and buy their dream Ferrari. I mean, yeah, someone else maybe opened that door and now it's used in the secondary market. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Same thing with Birkins. You know, I mean, not everyone can have a spend history with Hermes and walk out of there with their girlfriend or wife's dream Birkin. So you pay the 3x retail, whatever it is in the secondary market. It's still worth that. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah. It is so interesting, the royalty programs and how much you need to spend in some of these luxury good sectors in order to actually be consider that. You know, I bought both my all three of my watches actually on the secondary market, just because I didn't want to invest the time and energy on trying to make the relationship. Maybe I knew someone like you, it would have been a lot easier. But I'd rather focus on my business and then take the money from my business and the energy that I'm putting in, and then just pay for the convenience of getting it very quickly.
It's all politics. Why do we have to deal with the politics? I mean, if you have something that you want, get it. And I'm not going to let, with all due respect, because I have good friends that work in that industry, I'm not going to let an authorized dealer tell me I can or can't have something. I'm just going to go get it. Yeah. And that, again, that's just me being naive. If you're going to tell me I can't do something, I'm going to find a way to do it.
Yeah. And, you know, to your original point, you guys are trained. The first thing that you look at is you look at their watch, because it kind of gives you a somewhat idea. Not all the time. I'm sure there's a lot of billionaires rolling around with an Apple Watch or nothing. But it is also a status piece, you know, in the world of what we live in networking and trying to accumulate wealth and status and networking and proximity is power. What you wear and how you present yourself is very, very important. You know, if I meet someone and I look at their wrist and I see something of value, I know that how much sacrifice it took to get that. I may have a higher level of admiration or respect for that individual, not because they're better, but because I know what it took in order to get that. And it's a trophy.
It's absolutely a trophy. It tells people what you had to do to get to where you are. And you only get one chance to make a first impression.
It's true. Let's talk about balance a little bit, dudes. Being someone that loves the chaos and loves being a day behind and has that work ethic and that go, go, go mentality. Obviously, you're a father of 2 kids. You're a family man. I know that's been a really big focus of you these last 2-3 years, especially getting out of the nightlife. I'm sure it's a little bit easier not getting home at 3 or 4 a.m. to have a little bit more consistency. Talk to me about balance. I don't necessarily love the word balance, because I think there's seasons for everything. You know, you probably weren't really balanced the first couple of years in the nightlife industry because you had to work those long hours. I wasn't very balanced when we first launched our company because I needed to work. I needed to sacrifice, you know, some of the things that are valuable to me for a short period of time to eventually not have to sacrifice. But what does that day-to-day look like to making sure that you're present, spending that time with your family and being the great father that I know you are and desire to be, but also being the entrepreneurial businessman?
Well, I'm very lucky in the sense where the mother of my sons is a stay-at-home mother. And, you know, even though her and I aren't together as husband and wife, we're the best co-parents and we're a great team when it comes to that. So the home base and the foundation is really taken care of, where even her parents live in Vegas as well. So my 2 sons have a huge support system. So I am very lucky in that sense, where I do have the autonomy to make certain moves and do certain things, where I can get involved in things and be out late or take that early morning meeting or whatever it is. Something to be balanced, I think, is something I still got to work on. You know, it's hard to not look at that phone or not answer that text or not answer that email or even get caught up in social media sometimes. But for the most part, I think I'm pretty good at it. That, you know, I start my day off first thing, bringing my youngest son, Alec, to school, get all the stuff done throughout the day that I need to, pick up Ace right after this meeting. I'm going to go pick up my son Ace at his school, be in dad mode from like 5 to 8:30 when he goes to bed, and then back to, you know, everything that I'm focused on.
Love it, dude. It's honorable, you know, because a lot of people, they always make excuses. You know, it's an or mentality instead of an and mentality, right? Can I be a present, good dad, or can I be a thriving, successful businessman? Where it's like, it's never or, it's and, right? And creates possibilities or creates limitations. So it's always honorable to see someone that is trying to fill up all their buckets and not just making excuses of why they're neglecting certain areas of their life because they're trying to pursue or move in certain different other areas.
When my sons are older, I think that I'm going to lead by example. And they're going to know that dad had to make certain sacrifices and do certain things so we could have the life we have. And I think if everything works out in the relationship that I'm going to have with my sons and that open line of communication, I think they're going to respect that. And I think that the foundation will be set for them to do the same thing one day. There's nothing wrong with trying to be the best version of yourself, nothing wrong with trying to chase your dreams, and there's nothing wrong with trying to make sure your family is set forever as well, because legacy is very important.
How do you view money?
Keeping score between who's winning and who's losing. I view money as the resource to give my sons the life that they deserve. That's what it is to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, there's not many things you can measure in life. You can't measure how much you love your kids. You can't measure how much of an impact you're making in society. You can't measure how great of a husband you are. Sure, there's feedback that will give you indicators, but the nice thing about financial pursuit is you can measure it. You can look at your spreadsheets. You can look at the amount of employees you have. You can look at all the people that you helped make X amount of money that year, that month, because of your direct impact and influence. So I agree with you. I think people that aren't playing the game of money, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because success is different to a lot of people. You know, I know a lot of friends from high school who I'm still super close with that have no desire to get into business, but they love being able to be home with their family from a certain time. They love being able to go to their baseball games and do all the things, which I wouldn't say they're not necessarily successful. I just think they measure success different. But the nice thing about the fiscal game is you can measure it.
And you know what I'd like to add as well? It's a way to help people, which is something I've really focused on the past couple of years. You know, and I'm a sucker when it comes to all that. If someone asks me for help in this donation or that, I mean, I'm sending them the check, and it's a way to help people. It's a way to help people who weren't as lucky as I am, who weren't given the same opportunities as I've had, and it's a way to pay it forward because people helped me out along the way, and there's nothing wrong with that.
You keep bringing up luck, and I want to kind of double click into that a little bit. What would you define as luck?
I mean, of course, the answer is luck is where opportunity meets hard work, right? And that's the easy answer. That's what everybody always says. But I mean, there were many situations in my life, you know, where it had to have been something else because I should not be here. I shouldn't. I should not have the life I have. I should not have the opportunities I have. I should not have access to the things that I have. And it's all the way back to when I was a young man living in Taunton, Massachusetts, where I grew up before I came to Vegas. And there just had to have been something else, whether it was a higher power, whether it was my fate, whatever it was. But somewhere along the lines, things worked out for a reason, and it wasn't just hard work, because it's easy to say hard work, you know?
What would you tell people that tell themselves they're unlucky, and that's why they're in the circumstances that they're in?
You got to get out of that victim mentality. You cannot be a victim, and I'll never be a victim. You know, I almost was 3 years ago. I almost was. There were moments where I would project and I would blame others for, well, this person did this, and this person prevented me from having this, and well, I gave this person that ammo. No, fuck that. Other people aren't the reason why you are where you are. You are why you are where you are, and you had every opportunity to change it, and being a victim is not going to get you anywhere. So put all that energy into bitching and crying by yourself, into moving forward and figuring it out.
Yeah, I think we all fall into victims sometimes, but it's the ones that catch themselves and not allow themselves to stay there. Because I heard this, it said, maturity isn't how old you are. Maturity is realizing that everything in your life you have attracted because of the decisions you made up until this point. So if you love your life, if you love your relationship, if you love the amount of money you're making, if you love your body, you created that. If you dislike your life, dislike your body, dislike where you're at in life, you created that as well. And the crazy thing about victim is when you're blaming other people, you are then giving the power of circumstances or someone else, which takes away your power. You know, I can't change anything if I'm blaming the government or the economy or my old VIP host or whatever, because I am them giving the power over my life, which again is never a good position to be in.
And that question goes full circle into what we were talking about, your circle. And you got to be very, very cautious of who you have around you, because when I was falling into that, my friends picked me up, checked me, held me accountable. And over the past couple of years, when I've been fortunate to have the success I have, that's why it goes so hard for all my friends. Every one of my friends are sitting UFC ringside, courtside. We're one of the best dinners. my 40th birthday last year at the Wynn, getting 3 liters of Screaming Eagle and having this $75,000 dinner, which was such a comeback. You know, when I started at the Wynn as a waiter, now I'm having my 8, 9 best friends to come sit down and break bread with me and have dinner and celebrate all the success. You know, it's a testament to them. I have a lot of special people around me.
How important is humility in making sure that you stay on course and keep your compass faced in the right direction?
You have to be humble. You have to. Because I know it can all go away like that at any given moment. And this too shall pass. And whether it's the hard times or the good times. So always remain humble.
Yeah, I try and be very stoic. I think I'm naturally like that, kind of going back to superpowers. I'm a very stoic person where I never really get too excited or too sad. You know, a lot of my peers would tell me that if I'm having a really bad day at the office, people won't know. If I'm having a really good day at the office, people won't know. And just like everything, there's pros and cons to that. You know, sometimes I maybe don't show as much emotion to my intimate relationship or do certain things because I'm always kind of just like, you know, I'm cool. I'm posed. I have equanimity.
That's another trait that I really respect. I wish I could be like that. You know, I'm a little of a hothead sometimes, and I can be aggressive, but that's also why I'm successful. It works for me. So,
know thyself. I think I know the answer to this, but who you know or what you know?
Who you know. It's all who you know. It really is. Your network is 100% your net worth. Absolutely.
So what would you tell people? Maybe I'm someone in Vegas right now, and I have the desire. I'm listening to you right now. I maybe am not happy with my 9 to 5. Maybe I'm in the industry. Maybe I'm doing okay, making decent money, but I know it's not the end all be all. My network isn't that great. I don't have proximity to people that have the results I want. Like, what would you tell them would be the first step into starting to take, you know, the first step on that staircase?
You know, it's funny you say that because I remember it was probably 2015 now when I was working at Andrea's restaurant. And at that time, a gentleman, Sean Christie, was a managing partner of Andrea's, and he was a managing partner of Encore Beach Club. And Sean's a legend in this city. Someone I always looked up to because I was from Boston, Massachusetts. He was a guy from Boston as well who came out here and made it. I would drive this guy absolutely crazy when he would come into Andrea's as a guest and have dinner. You know, I was the kind of guy that even though I wasn't his waiter, I would go to the waiter in his section like, hey, fall back. I'm going to be his waiter right now. I'm going to take care of him. And I would drive this guy nuts. Yeah. I remember I finally drove him nuts enough where he finally gave me a chance to be a host, to surrender at that time. And I was nervous at the times. When I reached out to him, I sent him a long email, heartfelt email, like 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep one night. And I just wanted to do more and be more than what I was as a waiter. I knew I was capable of more. I knew this wasn't all that was meant for me. So I'm thinking like, you know, he calls me into a meeting and I'm thinking it's going to be like, all right, Sean's going to take me under his wing. He's going to give me this opportunity to do this now. I finally won him over. And he pitches me on being a host and surrender at the time. At that time, the way I viewed hosts, where these were the guys that would come in for these comp dinners and Andreas and act like douchebags with the big Gucci belts. I'm like, I don't want to be this guy. Like, that's the last thing I want to be. Look at how ironic that is, where I'm at now. So I sat down in his office and he was telling me like, you know, we're going to make you a host of Surrender. You're going to be great. I'm like, Sean, I don't know anybody. I'm a waiter. I haven't been in the city long. Like, how am I going to do this? Help me. Help show me the path to this. And he literally just said, figure it out. You're going to figure it out. That's it. There's no advice that I can give to someone who's listening to this podcast right now who is unhappy where they are. There's no like piece of information that I can give you that's just going to open it up. You just have to figure it out. And it's going to be tough and it's going to be hard. And there's going to be moments where it's very, very bleak. But if you stay the course and you don't give up, you will figure it out.
And it's worth it.
And it's definitely worth it because it can work out, you know. It can work out. Absolutely.
If you could go back in time, Ace, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would change in your journey or any advice that you would give your former self to help accelerate?
No, you got to check your ego. You know, there was a situation where, you know, I let my ego get the best of me at one time and I almost lost it all. And thank God I didn't. And that's why I'm so humble and so appreciative where I'm at. That's why I go so hard. Absolutely.
Dude, sound advice. Where can people find you, Ace? If they want to get connected, know a little bit about Moria, follow your content, follow your businesses.
I'm on Instagram, but I mean, I'm too busy. I'm not going to answer any DMs. I don't want to take any more lunches, any more coffees. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I got way too much going on. But in all seriousness, I mean, I'm always accessible. I'm always going to be that person that will take a phone call, take an email, take a meeting, whatever it is, and try looking out for a lot of these younger guys because I know the struggle they're in. I know the grind they're in, and, you know, and I know what they're trying to do. So I'm always going to help somebody out. I'm very, very accessible. I'm very easy to get to.
You're the man, dude. It's been an honor.
Right,
Appreciate you
so
coming on,
This
dude.
is awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you.